There is no doubt, Laticrete is one of my favorite manufacturers of grouts. They have an array of different grouts, just like a lot of the bigger grout manufacturers. But what I really love about them is that they're all really fine aggregate, and I always think that a fine aggregate grout will make it easier to clean and prevent you from getting it stained or dirty. So there's a lot of different options here, and I've used all of them, and I use them on different occasions for each one. So one of the easiest ones I'd say for any DIYer is actually a premixed grout. So this is Spectralock 1. It's already premixed like it's mentioned. You basically just pull it out of the bucket and start grouting. This is really great for any type of shower for the most part. It just is a little bit expensive. You know, not that expense should really prevent you from getting a good product. It's just something that can, you know, be out of budget for some people. And, you know, so let me try that again. It comes down to a price point on using what we're going to be using today. We're using Permacolor grout. So this is basically a high performance grout that's fast setting. And it's a powder, so you have to mix it with water, which, you know, isn't a really big deal. But the thing is this is like 40 bucks and this is like 120 bucks for the premix. So, you know, at a cost perspective, it just, you know, this makes a lot more sense. Now, this premix does have a more stain resistance to it because it's not epoxy, but it is like a urethane-based product. So one thing that was a real big just pet peeve of mine is that when you would take a shower and your grout joints would darken because it's absorbing the water into the grout joints. I never really liked that. I hated seeing that. And so a lot of these traditional types of grouts, that's what they're going to do. And in my mind, if it's actually water's getting into the grout joint like that, penetrating it, then to me it just seems like, you know, stains and everything else can as well. Now we're going with a really dark color, and it's not going to be an issue. Plus we're only going around the surround. It's not like it's a shower floor. So really this isn't going to even really have any water penetration whatsoever. So that's kind of why we're going with this cheaper route. But this is a great product. It's just I would recommend sealing it after you install it. You know, I think it's 3 or 5 days later that you can actually seal it. But sealing the grout is going to be important for the longevity of keeping it, especially with brighter colors like white or off-white. You want to seal it every 6 months. Now this stuff you don't seal. This is basically what it is. Now I've been using this for approximately almost over 3 years. I've probably done at least a half a dozen showers with it. And so far I've been really, really happy with it. That's one thing about Laticrete grouts is that they're all very fine aggregates. So they're kind of in between like a sanded and an unsanded. And if you ask me, I think having a smooth joint is really imperative to keep things clean. Otherwise soap, scum, and whatever will grow on, you know, a rough surface. And a rough surface is always going to be harder to clean. So that's one reason I really love the Laticrete brands, because they're all really fine aggregate. But this stuff I have mostly been using on darker colors like grays, browns, you know, something darker, because I just feel that the white, if you're going to go with a white grout or you know, like even a biscuit color, you want to go with an epoxy. Epoxy is going to be impenetrable. It's what most commercial kitchens would use in their, you know, platforms, commercial use, because the epoxy is a 2-part system that once it's formed, like I think it's almost like 99% impenetrable to water or any type of stain. So if you really want a long-lasting shower of any sort, epoxy is definitely going to be the #1 way to go. It's just not all for all projects. You know, it's expensive. I wouldn't say it's necessarily difficult to use, but it's just in an application like this for a backsplash or around the surround, it just really ultimately isn't necessary. And if you're going with a dark color, you're really not going to have an issue with staining in the first place. So that's kind of the reason. But Laticrete grouts are absolutely tremendous. And I think that, you know, you'll love them. I mean, they're really easy DIY friendly types of grouts. So let's get into doing the Permacolor grout on this shower and show you a couple tips on how to go about doing this. So a couple things that are just going to make grouting easier is a good sponge. Ardex makes pretty much one of the best sponges out there. It has square edges. It makes it easy to basically make the grout flush with the tile. In my mind, that's mostly what you're trying to do, is tool the joint, smooth with the surface so there isn't any recesses or dips. The square edges make a difference, and then just the fact, just however it's made, it's just a better sponge than the stuff that you get at the box store. So I highly recommend having a couple of these, at least for the grouting stage. It really, really helps out. Secondly is a decent grout float. So this is a Troxel grout float. It's basically a kind of a little bit of a flexible grout joint. These are much, much better than the rubber type ones you get at the box stores, and it's going to allow you to really, you know, remove any of the excess off. Now, none of these grouts are really tremendously scary. If you leave grout on the tile, you'll be able to get it off, but just having a good grout sponge or a float will make it easier to remove off of there. That's really about it, other than the cleaning aspect, making sure all the thin sets out, using a linoleum knife or some kind of scraper to make sure everything is removed is really important. You don't want to be messing around with anything that's in the joint during this grouting process.